65 today, on and off showers. That'll come later. Good morning, the Phil Show on the air. And about 8 minutes ago, it went on sale, or they went on sale. The News Talk 987 golf cart. They're $139 each, but it gets you 6 rounds with cart at select golf courses. So, Golf Cart A, Patriot, Graysburg, Bear Trace, Wild Laurel, Greens at Deerfield, Three Ridges. Golf Cart B, Dandridge, Woodlake, Ruggles Ferry, Clinchview, Island Point, and Deer Creek. So, whether you want to go up to Cross Vegas, hang around local, go to Bean Station, go to wherever, it is there for you. Newstalk.87.com. These will go fast. So they are on sale now, $139 each. A great, great value. We're all looking for things like that. Ladies and gentlemen, the very handsome Jim Brogan. When you call in the big guns when you got questions, and my gosh, have we got them. Jim, first of all, welcome and good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning, Phil. I'm down here in South Carolina with my wife's family, and it is down here. The sun is out, and it's beautiful, and I am doing poor man's burn-ins for 50 people tonight. On my smoker.
Now, what is poor man's burnt-ins?
Of course, your regular burn-ins would be with brisket.
Right.
Burn-ins would be your traditional. Poor man's burn-in, you use chuck roast.
Oh.
And it's just a lot easier. It doesn't take nearly as long. You get a lot more volume of burn-ins out of the chuck.
Oh, man. Now, are you a golfer?
I'm just now started playing again. I had given it up several years ago, and I've just now started. That sounds like a great deal.
Oh, on the golf course. I was just wondering if down in South Carolina, if you're playing any down there, or if you're just kind of hanging and cooking for everybody. That sounds...
hanging and cooking.
Hanging and cooking. Now, someone had texted us. We got off the record coming up on May the 6th. Someone said you were a singer in college.
Yes, sir. I was a music major. I was that was my undergraduate degree, and that's actually how Dee Dee and I met, was singing with a group over in North Carolina in the summers.
Well, we're looking for some talent, We may have to bring you on stage. I don't know here. I don't know here, Jimmy. I mean, because somebody. I mean, it's like somebody told on you on our text line. Anyway, here we go. The tariffs are 10% across the board, except for China, and all of that. And here we go. Bouncing back and forth, 90 days pause, which I guess will help the stock market. But what about people who were looking at their 401ks? And even though you had a big rally yesterday, and of course they're maybe near retirement, are they freaking out? And is that what you're seeing? And what do we need to do here, Jim Brogan?
I think the first thing is don't panic. Market volatility can happen at any time for any reason. We never always know the cause. I think what people need to do is be assessing, as they get closer to retirement, they do face a bigger risk because, they're going to need to start accessing their money for income sooner than later. Now, for younger folks, I don't think you should be worrying about your 401k balance. If you're even, 12, 15 years from retirement, you should be, if anything, looking at how can I be investing more money. And if you're doing payroll deduction and you're getting an employer match, while the market is down right now, you're buying in while it's down. And so you get to take advantage of that volatility. Now, once you're retired, you don't get to take advantage of that volatility because you're not investing when that happens. And so it is important to assess risk. But I think right now the most important thing is not to overreact and make short-term decisions. Phil, normally the best days in the market follow the worst days in the market.
Well, it's true. Yeah.
And case in point, look what happened yesterday. So, if you got out of the market on Tuesday and you weren't in it on Wednesday, you missed an epic rally in the market. So it's just important not to try to time those things, especially when we're seeing this kind of volatility.
Well, and they say, this is an opportunity. You hear this, you hear that. When the market's down, buy into the thing. And that may or may not be a good idea, Jim Brogan?
I think you should be systematic. For those that are still working and are still investing, they should be systematically investing no matter what's going on in the market.
No matter what.
It can be counterintuitive. Correct, because they can be counterintuitive. But when you invest when the market's down, you take advantage of that volatility. The key is you still need to keep a long-term horizon. We shouldn't be invested in the market for what it might be worth in 3 months or next year, because we just have no idea. It's a crapshoot in the short term. But over time, the market has provided the best opportunity to beat inflation with our money and grow our wealth.
You got Harold Black on Saturday on More Living with Jim Brogan. You guys are going to talk about, well, I guess the tariffs, the pauses, the debt. You got Dr. Black on. What's the first question you ask somebody like him?
What does he think of what's going on right now economically with the tariffs and what Trump's doing, and get his measured and very educated opinion on that?
Yeah, and I tell you what.
Now, I also really want to dive into the debt. I want to dive into his thoughts on the national debt. How big of an issue is it, and how do we go about? There are different ways to bring that debt down. It's not just raising tax revenue. So I want to get his thoughts on that.
Well, and here again, and now when you do that show, do you podcast it or repeat it? We can get it on a website.
Yes, sir. It runs live 9 to 10 a.m. It reruns from 3 to 4 p.m. We podcast it on our website. It's usually up by Tuesday.
Okay.
It'll be up by Tuesday of next week. It's podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify under More Living with Jim Brogan.
Well, because here again, if we can't catch it, not that I'm going to be watching the Masters, but I do want to hear it. So anyway, you got the 90-day pause on tariffs, and the stock market just went crazy yesterday. Have we seen the worst of this, or do you think it's going to dump again?
Well, great question. I think that's the question of the day. Ultimately, we don't know. I do think I don't know that the market's going to go lower than it was at the close on Tuesday. Now, it may. I don't know that. Nobody knows that. I think we do have to be careful. We're not out of the woods here on volatility. He's increased the tariff on China. They've retaliated, of course, and then he retaliated back. And I don't know the market's priced all that in. There's still a risk of increasing prices. There's still a risk of stagnant economic growth. So I think we're still in for some choppiness. What happens in 90 days? What gets done? What happens with China? So I think we need to buckle up and realize things are going to be kind of probably choppy for a while. But that shouldn't be unexpected when we invest in the stock market, and we shouldn't worry about it too much if we're taking a longer-term view. Now, if we're getting closer to retirement, we got to make sure we're not taking unnecessary risks. We want to avoid those 30, 40% downturns, because inevitably the market has those types of bear markets.
All right. Now, Jim's in South Carolina making poor man's burn-ins. I got a couple more questions. And are you using a grill or a smoker?
I'm using a smoker.
Okay.
I have a smoker down here, too. So
bless your heart.
Yes, sir.
I may have to call and get the keys to that place. All right, we'll be right back with more of Jim Brogan as he prepares chuck roast to make delicious burn-ins, but more importantly, helps us with our money in retirement. We'll be right back. Great to have you on a Phil show. Tariffs, paused 90 days. I think everybody's at 10%, even the Penguins, and except for China. More with Jim Brogan real quick. $139 each card. 6 golf courses each card. Golf card just went on sale. Click the Sweet Deal banner at newstalk987.com and get yours while they last. And Jim Brogan said he just started taking the game back up. Maybe we'll tee it up sometime there. And, we can do that. We'll tee that up sometime. Now, in a minute, we'll talk a little more about poor man's burn-ins. Let's get the other stuff right now. People are, they maybe have watched their 401k go down. Don't panic. What about if you've got some cash? CDs still a good, safe investment, short-term, long-term? What are we talking here?
CD rates are still over 4%, and I think one of the most important things there, Phil, is we shouldn't be having much cash just sitting in savings, not making anything. We probably need a little bit of that, but with high yield savings accounts still over 4%, if you have a lot of cash laying around, and I deal this a lot with people that are close to retirement or retired, they've got a lot of cash sitting around, $50,000, $70,000, $80,000. 4% on that could be $2,500, $3,000 of interest that you're walking away from. Now, longer term, I think people need to stay invested. I think that money you're going to need 8-10 years from now, CDs over time do not keep up with inflation. And so, they are right now, but I don't know how long that's going to last. And so I just think it's critical that longer-term investments be invested. Now, I do want to just mention one thing, if I could, Phil. I think it's very important that people assess their risk in their risk portfolio. I don't want people to misunderstand me and say, all stocks all the time. I'm not saying that at all. I think people need diversification. They need levers that they have in their portfolio of diversification where they've got things that when the stock market is substantially down, they've got other things that not only are holding their own, but are maybe even making money. And that creates more stability to the portfolio so that you don't have, instead of the rugged peaks and valleys of the Rocky Mountains, you get more of the rolling hills of the Smoky Mountains.
All right. That's pretty good. You got Harold Black on Saturday 2 times, and you can get it on the podcast, too. All the talk about tariffs, inflation, now all of this stuff that's being tariffed, China, all of that coming in here. You think there's going to be panic buying on things made in China, and how much do we need to worry about inflation with these tariffs?
I think that we've heard a little bit of rumblings about some panic buying. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of that. I do think there is some of that. I do want to touch on the inflation issue. Inflation is still a concern. Now, the inflation numbers just came out this morning, and they were lower than expected. And normally that would be big news.
No, 2.6.
With everything going, with everything with the tariffs, it's not big news. But the Fed is really watching that, and I think they're going to be very hesitant to continue to lower rates right now in the next few months because they do not want to see inflationary events, and the tariffs could cause a little bit more inflation. And so that's yet to be determined. But that is something we need to watch out for sure. So
you said, you kind of hinted right there, the Fed, you don't think do you think the Fed's going to lower interest rates this year?
I do think yes, later in the year. And I think the consensus had been maybe a couple of rate cuts in the second half of the year because of what's going on right now. And they anticipated maybe slowdown in economic growth because of tariffs. We may see 3 or 4 rate cuts later in the year. I just don't think we're going to see them in the next couple of months. Okay. But yes, I think rate cuts are on the table in the back half of the year.
All right, Jim Brogan, you were the man. You got Dr. Harold Black on Saturday. You're down in South Carolina cooking for how many people?
50 people. Well, 45 to 50 people. And one of our cousins is doing a fish fry, and I'm doing the poor man's burn-ins, and then everybody else is bringing food. Oh, we're going to have a big time.
Now,
it's going to be 74 down here today.
Oh, perfect. Oh, that's just perfect. You need to tee it up. Now, so you're using a chuck roast to make the poor man's burn-in?
I'll cut it. I'll cut it into 1-inch cubes. Yeah. I'll go ahead and cut it before I cook it so it can get good char on all sides of those burn-ins.
Yeah.
I'll smoke them for a couple of hours, and then I'll wrap them in some wonderful goodness like butter and honey and a little bit of hot sauce.
Oh.
Then I'll wrap them and put them back in there for an hour and a half or so. They'll be done in 4 hours, where brisket would take 12 to 15
right.
hours.
Now, what kind of wood are you using? Using hickory? What are you using?
I use a blend of a few different woods. I'll have hickory. I'll have a little bit of apple in there, a little bit of pecan, that kind of thing.
Now, I have a pecan tree. And I have to, and from time to time a limb will come down. I'll tell you what, I mean, it's a real pecan tree with yield. We get good pecans, everything. I'll try to save you a couple of chunks of that. so that you can use
I would
that,
love that.
for your smoker, yeah. And then we'll tee it up. All right, Jim Brogan, this Saturday with Dr. Harold Black. Enjoy your time in South Carolina.
I sure will. Thank you so much,
All right,
Phil.
brother. Thank you so much. Love you. Nothing you can do about it. All righty then. Other things going on as.